God here. And it's football season. And it's like 100 degrees outside. Sorry about that. Welcome to Season 4 of Gods of Odds, hosted by two of my favorites, Brad Hoyseth and Dave Daba.
Welcome to the Gods of Odds. It is a week number 11 of your National Football League season. That is Brad Hoyseth over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave Daba up in Northern California. And Mr. Hoyseth, I have to ask a very important question here. Do you think the Cleveland Browns are happy? Ecstatic about their Deshaun Watson investment so far?
You know, it's the Cleveland Browns, Dave. So, I mean, turn the page back 3-4 years, you can come up with a guy. Go 3-4 years past that, you can come up with another guy. I mean, it's just kind of what happens to the Cleveland Browns, isn't it? I mean, they... what goes in, you know, it's like they used to call the old stadium there the Mistake by the Lake.
Yeah.
It's just kind of the way that it's kind of what's haunted that franchise for a long time. You know, I was talking to a buddy of mine today about the Browns, and, you know, they're just one of those teams that just when you think they're done, they kind of look good. And then just when you think they're on a roll and they're looking good, then they look terrible.
Yeah.
You know, you know, the Browns to me are just they're just another team. You know, they haven't shown anything special all season long. Deshaun Watson, he's just not the same player he was 3-4 years ago when he was playing. You know, he's just not.
Yeah, ironically, he had like his best half of football with a fractured shoulder, which is just absolutely amazing. I look at the Cleveland Browns, Brad. And when I see the Cleveland Browns, and I know you're not huge into the association, but I look at the Cleveland Browns and I immediately think Los Angeles Clippers. I do. I mean, only the Clippers could go out and get James Harden and lose 5 games in a row with James Harden, Paul George, Russell Westbrook, and Kawhi Leonard. It is the NFL equivalent to the Los Angeles Clippers, I believe, is the Cleveland Browns. I'm just saying. All right. It is a busy week. We are recording Thursday night, 4:25 p.m. And one last question before we get into this, Brad. Will you be watching the F1 Cup practice tonight on ESPN at 9 p.m.?
Negative. Yeah, no, I won't be. I will not be tuned in whatsoever. I'm a little tired. We went out to a concert last night. Saw one of our favorite bands, Cat Empire, in the at a little venue. It was kind of fun, but took a little bit out of me. You know, I'm not the young kid I once was, Dave.
Dude, I have to just say this super quick. So, a buddy of mine was in Vegas the last couple days, and about an hour and a half ago, he sent me a picture from one of the F1 Cup stores that they've propped up, and they were selling Mercedes F1 Cup hats with FTX logos on them. And get this, Brad, they were only 25% off. You would have thought those would have been just like 60-70% off. And the nerve of them to even sell them, even put them on the market and try to sell them on top of it. Anyways, okay, so just had to get that out. Let's go ahead and dive into it, Brad. I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, first game is probably the game of the week. It's the Eagles at the Chiefs. You know, the over-under is 46. To me, neither one of these teams have played anywhere near the level they played at last year.
Yeah.
And we kind of keep waiting for them to all of a sudden look great, and it just doesn't seem to happen, but they keep winning. Yeah. And so something's got to give this week. The Eagles are at the Chiefs. The over-under is 46. I get a sense this game's going to be a little bit lower scoring. Both these teams are going to try to control the clock and control the ball. The Eagles, the thing that's different about them this year is they don't seem to run the ball quite as well as they did last year, despite the fact that they're great at the brotherly shove or whatever you want to call it. But that's their best running play right now. They're just not running the ball that well, but I think they're going to have to this week against the Chiefs. And I think the Chiefs likewise will try to control the clock with short passes and Isaiah Pacheco and stuff like that. So I'm going to take the under. I thought 46 is a pretty high number for that. Last year, I think I probably would have taken the over, but neither one of these teams really has been particularly efficient offensively all season long. So I'm going to take the under.
Yeah. You make complete sense with your in-depth knowledge of this game, Mr. Hoisev. I mean, I basically agree with everything you've said. However, I am going to disagree with you and take the over. The Chiefs, I believe, are coming off of a bye. Both teams are getting a little more healthy. They both have explosive offenses, and I'm not really buying that this Chiefs defense is going to continue playing as good as it's played through the first half of the season. And if that happens, then the Patrick Mahomes 2022 style offense is going to have to open up. Look, both of these coaches, both of these coaching staffs, as well as these players, know each other quite well at this point. And I think you're going to see a higher scoring game than you believe for that reason. And quite frankly, that reason only. So I'm going to go ahead and take the over in this one.
Yeah, I just kind of feel like Steve Spagnuolo's pretty good at these things.
Yeah.
He always, just when you think the Chiefs defense isn't very good, he devises a great game plan in a big game. This is just that. It's a big game. And so that was part of the reason I took the under there.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to what I believe is the game of the week, Brad. Geez. Using the game of the week spiel at the very beginning. I've got the Vikings at the Denver Broncos. The Vikes are not favored in this game. The resurgent Denver Broncos are favored by 2 going into this one. And I like Russell Wilson. I like what he's been doing. Statistically, he's played a lot better this year than he has last year. And this 3-game winning streak that they're on, they're certainly playing better. Sean Payton has sort of turned the season around, if you will, to some extent, as have the Minnesota Vikings. Of course, there's the Josh Dobbs story that is taken the world by, or at least the National Football League world by storm. I don't know about you, Brad, but you at one point last weekend, you texted me and said, "Hey, Josh Dobbs jersey for Christmas." And I was starting to sort of like think about it. And like after I watched, I saw your text, there was the Kirk Cousins Green Bay Packer commercial where the Packers fans are wearing Cousins jerseys. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. I should pull off a Josh Dobbs jersey. So I was watching one of the shows earlier in the week on happened to catch a couple highlights on Twitter. And I think it was Pro Football Weekly or something like that. But one of the guys was wearing a Josh Dobbs shirt already. Anyways, I sort of look at this game. Dobbs, by the way, was on the injured list yesterday with a sprained ankle. I think that you start to think about teams of destiny. And, there's different levels of destiny, Brad, in life. There's the, you're going to become a billionaire. You'll make just $1 million. But those are levels of destiny. And I think when I look at this, the Vikings are a team destined to make the playoffs, and Josh Dobbs and or the rookie from BYU is going to be the quarterbacks that actually lead this Viking team not necessarily beyond making the playoffs, but at least to the playoffs. And I think they're going to continue their winning streak in Denver. I am not sold on this Denver Bronco defense, nor am I sold really on Russell Wilson's scrambling ability. I think he got a little lucky the last couple of weeks. I like the Vikes, and I'll take the 2 points from you as well.
Well, I think at some point you're destined to be disappointed, Dave. Now, I don't know if it's going to – first of all, who would have ever guessed 4 or 5 weeks ago that these two teams would be playing, and they're basically the two hottest teams, in their own conference. I mean, the Vikings are the hottest team in the NFC right now.
Yeah.
And the Broncos, have put together a string of some pretty good football. And, they're playing lousy competition.
Yeah.
But, you got to love what you're seeing out of Dobbs. Is Justin Jefferson back for that game, Dave, or is he still out?
You know what? I haven't seen the official word on it. I suspect he'll still be out.
Yeah. I think at some point that's got to catch up with the Vikings. I saw this line. I saw Denver was favored. It kind of surprised me, to be honest. And it's one of those games where, every now and then you see a line where you think, what's wrong here?
Yeah.
Almost like they're suckering me into taking, somebody and the Vikings. And I just think that this is one of those games. I'm going to take Denver. I think they're at home, and, we're still dealing without Justin Jefferson as well as Josh Dobbs has played, and he's been great. It's probably the most fun I've had watching the Vikings in 5 or 6 years. But I just got a sense that, at some point, you're going to run out of plays from Hawkinson, and the running game still has not been great. Jordan Addison's been spectacular, but Denver is playing good. They're at home. I'm going to somehow, some way give the 2, and I'm going to take Denver. But admittedly, this is a game that kind of confused me, and I just thought it was one of those things that Vegas knows something we don't know.
Yeah, I don't know about Vegas knowing something we don't know, but look, it's going to be a 1-score game, one way or the other, most likely. And the KJ Osborne looks like he's cleared his concussion protocol and will be available to play. That will certainly help. Hawkinson is in desperate need at this point of the bye week to finally get here for this Viking football team. He's got those bruised ribs, and every time the poor guy gets hurt, I mean, he's a beast. I mean, this Viking team wouldn't be where it's at right now without Hawkinson. It's just
Hawkinson's made a lot of plays, but he's taken a lot of shots, Dave, and so I'm with you on that. Hey, I'm going to go on to the game that I think is going to be the blowout of the week. I think there's going to be 2 massive blowouts. This is the second blowout of the week. The first one's coming up next for me, and it's the Raiders at the Dolphins. I think people in Raiderland are excited because their new coach has won a couple of games. I'm going to say pump the brakes on that. I still don't think they're a very good team. As far as I know, Aiden O'Connell is still the quarterback, and I still can't tell you where he played college football.
Purdue.
Well, yeah.
He's a Boilermaker.
Yeah, the Finns are a 12-point favorite in that one. I think they're coming off a bye week, and I think they're angry. And so I'm going to take the Dolphins. I'm going to give that 12. I think it's going to be a pretty sizable blowout. I think the Raiders has come back down to earth this week.
Yeah, Jordan Addison or Aiden, the quarterback for the Raiders, is one of those guys who got sort of caught up in the whole COVID thing. So I don't know what the official record is on it, but I think he started like 6 years for Purdue. He's definitely an older rookie, which isn't always such a bad thing. I like what the head coach of the Raiders is trying to do with this team. I just think that this Miami Dolphins team is ripe to just blow out the Raiders in this one.
Yeah,
I absolutely agree with you on it. And, Brad, this is one of 5 games where the spread is 10 points or more. I mean, it is, the map of the world has started to even itself out. It has it's been created at this point. Some of the countries are smaller with less money than the others, and that's exactly where we're at with this particular game.
Yeah, I think if you're, and I think I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that the Dolphins were about ready to get healthy defensively.
Yeah.
Well, that happened because Jalen Ramsey's back, and now Xavier Howard comes back. And I think quickly, if you can make that move to pick up the Dolphins on your fantasy football league, if they're not already taken, I would recommend that, especially before this game against the Raiders, playing against a rookie quarterback. I just see it as a really, really bad matchup for the Raiders.
Yeah, completely agree, Brad. I'm waving an imaginary white flag for both of my fantasy football teams right now. It has not been a pretty season for me on the fantasy front. All right, moving on to another game with another big spread. The Dallas Cowboys on the road against Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers, 10.5 points for the Dallas Cowboys. My biggest concern here is that the Cowboys, for some reason, decide to overlook the Carolina Panthers. For some reason, they are not paying attention that Bryce Young is getting a little bit better. He's getting a little bit better. And if they, for some reason, decide to forget that they should be blitzing Bryce a lot, then they could end up in trouble, and this 10.5 points could certainly be in jeopardy. I don't think any of that's going to happen. I think they're going to score 10 to 14 points on turnovers alone on the defensive side of the ball. This is all about the Cowboys taking this Carolina Panthers team seriously and actually getting a significant amount of pressure on a very young quarterback. And if they do that, this is a walk in the park for the Cowboys this week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you here. The Cowboys were pretty impressive most recently, and the Panthers are a young team, and they've got some nice young players, but offensively they don't really have the stars to match point for point with the Cowboys. But the biggest thing with the Cowboys is the inconsistency on offense, and they win when their defense plays great. They very rarely win because of their offense. Now, their wide receiver CeeDee Lamb had a nice game last week, and he'll do that. But the problem I have with CeeDee Lamb is then he takes a couple weeks off, and you don't hear from him. And I'm always on pins and needles taking the Cowboys or betting against them because you never really quite know what you're going to get. But recent reports have them playing pretty well, and so I just don't think that Carolina has the weapons to match it. 10.5 is a big number, but I'm going to take the Cowboys.
Thought you were going to go all Forrest Gump there and your life is like a box of chocolates. And the other comment I have for you, Brad, is you threw out the kiss of death earlier when you're talking about a football team, and if you either say, hey, that football this is a young football team, or this is an old football team, that means, Brad, that is code word for this is a bad football team. And that is exactly what the Carolina Panthers are.
All right, I'm going to go to the biggest blowout of the week, and that's the Bears at the Lions, Dave. I see little hope in Bearland this weekend. The Lions had a nice win last week, and now they're going home to see a Bears team that has played better recently, but now they're going to get Justin Fields back. And, I just don't think you come back after 4 or 5 weeks off and shake off the rust and play well. I mean, we saw the last time he came in without playing for 4 weeks. That was at the beginning of the year, and he was terrible. I like Justin Fields. I just don't think they have the weapons to match point per point with the Lions, who I think are the runaway winners in their division. No matter what the Vikings fans thinks. The Lions, they're finally going to go into Thanksgiving next week, Dave, as one of the favorites in the league. How's that feel?
I would never say that the Vikings' destiny this year is to win their division. So I agree with you on the Lions, and I mean they could be looking at a potential bye when the playoffs start. I mean that's how well this team's doing. I saw a headline today that had, Dan Campbell and the Texas A&M coaching job in the same headline. I'm assuming that was Dan Campbell did not talk to Texas A&M, because I'm sure he's not looking to jump ship or anything like that. So yeah, Brad, look, I completely agree with you on this. What I want to know is, and I got a call from one of my, for some reason, I'm up in Northern California, Brad, and for some reason, I must be attracting Chicago Bears fans, because I have several Chicago Bears fans up here who are friends of mine. And one of them called me today and said, what do you think they should do with Justin Fields? Because they're going to have most likely the number 1 pick, and I think the number 5 pick in the upcoming NFL draft. Yeah, so he was asking me, should they take a quarterback? Should they move off of Fields? I was just sort of curious I know what my thoughts are on that, but what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's a great year for quarterbacks to get drafted.
Yeah.
Fields, I don't think he's really had a great chance so far to prove his value. I mean, I know he's played some games last year. He didn't have DJ Moore or whatever it was at wide receiver, and they didn't have a lot of weapons. He strung together some nice games at the end of last year, and he has looked better until he got hurt this year. But I'm not quite sure. I think he was a high fantasy draft pick for a lot of people because he had a good finish to the season last year. But then you see Tyson Bagent come in, and he actually had some moments where he looked okay. And, there are some weapons there now, with I think Cole Kmet's a really good tight end. I think it's still to be determined, Dave. I don't think that they've made that decision yet. I think they got to see what Justin Fields can do when he's healthy with these newfound weapons and give him some time. And then I think by the end of the year, they're going to know whether or not he's their guy.
Yeah, I mean, I suspect that by the end of the year, on Black Monday, there'll be a coaching change again in Chicago. So I think it's a question of who the new coaching staff is potentially, if that does happen. And the other thing is, Fields, at least so far in the games I've seen him play this year, there are times where he's not reading defenses correctly. That's what's ultimately, I think he's got all the arm talent in the world. I think he's great at running. And if they could work on how to better strategize against reading defenses, I think he'd be in a completely different spot. So in my opinion, it just depends on who the coaching team or staff is going to be next year. But the kid has all of the tools and talent, but I'm concerned. Look what Ken Dorsey did to Josh Allen up in Buffalo. Look, coaching really does matter in the National Football League, and these coordinators matter. I mean, Brock Purdy would be, if he played for the New England Patriots, he'd be the 3rd string quarterback on that Patriot team. I mean, that's, it's coaching really matters.
Well, just to clarify, Dave, that was a 10-point line, the Lions, and we both took the Lions.
Yeah.
And gave the 10 points. Somewhere in there, I know we said that.
Yeah.
But I don't think Justin Fields is the best quarterback to come out of Ohio State in the last, 5 years. So CJ Stroud is, I look at what CJ Stroud's doing. in his first year, and then you got, and he doesn't have a ton of talent there in Houston, right? And so to me, that looks like instant stardom, right? I don't think you can say you've seen that out of Justin Fields quite yet.
No, you haven't, and it's a different style offense that they're running in with the Texans, and CJ Stroud has a considerably faster release. He also spends I think more time looking at video and looking at defenses. I don't know if you've heard the stories coming out of Texas at all, but out of Houston. But like the stories around CJ Stroud is that he's like texting his wide receivers and tight ends and running backs after midnight with coverage suggestions and ideas. So I mean, I think there's a certain level of work off the field that has to go into this, and I think that's one of the reasons he's been so successful. Will the defenses figure him out, and will he come back down to earth? Most likely, but to this point, I really it's just flat out impressive what CJ Stroud is doing. Which takes us to our next game, which should be super simple to talk about, I would think, which is the Cardinals from Arizona traveling to Houston to do battle with CJ Stroud. The Texans are actually favored by 4 in this game, and I'm expecting a Texans blowout in this game for a wide variety of reasons, Mr. Hoyseth.
I agree. I mean, if you'd have told me at the beginning of the season that the Houston Texans were going to be one of the more entertaining teams to watch, I mean, I'd have told you you're crazy. But this kid he's must-see football right now. I mean, he looks really, really like the real thing. And, yeah, I know it's a small sampling, but it's a small sampling with not tremendous talent around him, and he just looks like he's got that it, Dave. And so I'm with you. The line is 4. I'm going to take the Texans and give the 4. I think the Cardinals are one of the worst teams in football.
One of the things he does really well as a young quarterback. I mean, he made a mistake towards in the last game towards the end, but he gets rid of the ball quickly, and he throws the ball away. And he doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Like that offensive line is okay. But he's just got such a quick release, and he's processing things so fast. And when he makes a decision, he makes it. And that ultimately has proved to be, I don't know how to put this, other than to say he's been successful so far, Mr. Hoyseth.
Yeah, now he makes a lot of good decisions. So what I'm going to do is go to a game where the quarterbacks don't make a lot of good decisions. And
there's so many of those.
That's the Giants at the Commanders. I know you're a big Thurston Howell III fan.
How can you not like what Sam Howell is doing? Seriously.
Yeah, I don't know, Dave. He reminds me a little bit when he's on. He reminds me a little bit of Brad Johnson, a guy that you and I are really familiar with. But
you mean Super Bowl winning Brad Johnson?
Yeah, when he's off, he's a little bit more like Carson Wentz, and so he's somewhere in between there. The Washington Commanders are a 10-point favorite, Dave. I mean, I watch them from week to week, and I go, man, Riverboat Ron, he's gone pretty soon. I mean, I think they're about ready to give up on him. This is not. I don't think it's a great football team, and I know the Giants are terrible, and they've basically quit on Daboll. But I see a 10-point line, and I'm like, that seems like a very, very big line for a Washington team that is, I think, a substandard football team. So I'm going to take the Giants on the road. Two teams that know each other. I just thought 10 was way too much.
Like Giants on the road. Sam Howell. So I pulled up the stats, 17 TDs, 9 picks, Yeah, Carson Wentz-ish, right there. 91%, quarterback rank. I mean, he is what he is, and he doesn't have a great off. Like there are no hogs technically in front of him there in Washington at this point.
He's getting hit a lot, Dave. And if there's one thing the Giants can do, they can occasionally rush the passer.
Occasionally. And I like the Commanders in this one. It's maybe less about the Commanders and just more about how this New York Football Giants team has completely and utterly given up at this point and I think Dayball's in jeopardy.
Dave, I think both of these coaches are gone at the end of the year. I really do.
I don't know if you heard the wacky rumor of the week, but it had Bill Belichick leaving the New England Patriots. And I actually saw this on a legitimate sports show. So this wasn't like, somebody with a Twitter account. But basically said that Belichick leaves New England, which, by the way, I think is going to happen this year, one way or the other. And then takes over the Washington Commanders football organization. And, stays on the East Coast. I know you've been dreaming of the day, Brad, where you're watching a Los Angeles Charger press conference and you have a different head coach there. And wouldn't it be fun to have Belichick in Los Angeles, doing media? Yeah, sunburn. Maybe some sort of suntan. Maybe it would relax him a little bit more. I mean, but the reality is, I don't think he would do that. I think he'd stay on the East Coast. And the Commanders will hopefully have a new name by next year, and hopefully their jerseys say the District on them.
Well, I think that leads you into your next game there, Dave. What do you got next?
All right. Let's see here. Up next, Chargers at the Packers. Bolts favored by 3. Brad, seriously, like this is a bad Green Bay Packer team. I don't know if they're young or they're old. I do know that it is not a good football team. And at this point, I think the Chargers are still sort of in contention. Justin Herbert has played very well the last couple weeks. I mean, the Staley has to win this game. This is another must win for him. So I like the Chargers on the road.
Yeah, it's funny. I agree with you totally on the Packers. I think they're a terrible football team. You just got to wonder where they would have been with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, would they have been a better team? And,
yeah.
I've got a friend that I hang out with, and he's, a big Packer honk, and he's pretty quiet these days. He was excited about the turnover that Rodgers was finally gone. It was time to turn the page into the new world, and the new world hasn't been so friendly with Jordan Love at the helm, and it's not a very good football team. I'm with you. I really don't like taking Brendan Staley in any games, but I got to take the Bolts on the road and give the 3. I just don't think Green Bay has got the weapons. There seems to be all kinds of problems now. There's been comments about Aaron Jones. The coaching staff has been critical of him. So I think the things are tough times right now in Green Bay. They're looking right at the barrel of, hanging out with the Bears down at the bottom of the league standings. So they need a win badly. I don't think they get it. I think the Chargers go on the road and get a win.
Fully enjoying the Packer bad season. I can't tell you. Look, Aaron Rodgers, even at this stage of his career, is worth 3 to 4 additional wins, for a football team. So I mean, I think the Packers would be just, sitting there vying for a playoff berth, just like they did last year. I don't think there was any Aaron Rodgers has fallen off of planet Earth yet with his play. So he's not who he was 3 years ago, but he's still better than Tom Brady was in his last year in the National Football League.
All right, Dave, watch out for this name this week. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Going to be the Cleveland Browns starter, I believe, this weekend, the kid out of UCLA. And they're playing at home against the Steelers. And Vegas, I think, agrees with me that Pittsburgh's not a very good football team because Cleveland is favored by 4 over the Steelers with a rookie quarterback that's, never been a starter in the league. And so I'm going to take the Browns. I'm going to give the 4. I think the Steelers, the defense, they get turnovers, Dave, but they're terrible between the 20s. And they give up a lot of yards. They're in the bottom 5 or 6 teams in the league. I picked up last week Jordan Love against them, who had really a nice game against the Steelers.
Yeah.
They give up way too many yards for me. Cleveland's at home. I think they sorely need a win. I'm going to take the Browns. I'm going to give the 4, and I say Dorian Thompson-Robinson puts up decent numbers in his first start.
I did not know. I saw him play a little bit during preseason and was semi-impressed. I didn't know Cleveland was making that move. I thought they were going to start their other quarterback. Everything you said makes perfect sense. I'm going to go ahead. I was going to take the Steelers. I'm going to flip over to the Browns. This game could go either way. I just don't know that I have enough faith in Kenny Pickett because, quite frankly, I just don't. This could be a weather game. That Cleveland defense is just so fantastic right now. You know what? You are absolutely correct. I'm flipping. I'm agreeing with you.
Wow, that's impressive. If I got you, and you're even changing it on the spot on the book. I can see you doing it right now, but
I didn't want to have to put in a note later when you said I got it wrong.
No, I think Cleveland. You're right. The defense is really good, and Kenny Pickett and George Pickens. I just don't think much of that offense. In recent weeks, Najee Harris has gotten a little bit going. So, they've had a little bit of life in the running game. But I don't think you have much life in the running game against the Browns. And I think that's going to force the quarterback there to make some plays. And, Browns can still play some defense. Really, to me, this one's all about that Steelers defense. Can they get turnovers? If they can't, I think the Browns win the game.
Yeah. All right. So moving on to our final game of the week, the Baker Mayfield-led Tampa Bay Buccaneers are coming out here to the Bay to show up to play the 49ers. 49ers are favored by 11. Another, high spread in this particular game. If Brock Purdy, for some reason, recedes back to what he was doing a couple weeks ago, then I'm going to lose this game. But I think this 49er defense is fairly healthy now. Obviously, the addition of Chase Young paid dividends at least last week. George Kittle even looked healthy. Like that Jacksonville Jaguar team is so freaking parenthood. It's so up and down. You just don't know what you're going to get with that team. You're on a roller coaster ride. So 49ers last week just destroyed them. I look them to continue that to some extent and take down the Buccaneers fairly easily at Levi's Stadium.
Yeah, the 49ers are healthy now. Or for the most part, healthy. And when it's the 49ers, you got to knock on wood when you say that because they've been a mash unit for 3 or 4 years, it seems like. But I just don't think much of this Tampa team. I really don't think they're that good. Baker Mayfield's way too inconsistent. He makes a lot of careless decisions. And if you do that against the Niners, you're going to pay a heavy price. 11, I thought, was a big line.
Yeah.
I didn't really feel comfortable with that. But I'm going to go with the good team.
Are you sure you don't want to switch?
Yeah, I don't want to switch. I'm going to take the Niners in that one. I think they're going to start to go on that roll that they were on at the beginning of the year when things got thrown off when they lost their left tackle and McCaffrey got a little dinged up, and then they lost the wide receiver and they did their normal 49er thing.
Yeah.
But now they're out there spending money, getting Chase Young. I think they smell blood in the water, and I think the Niners get the win here big.
All right, there you go. It is our top 10 games worth actually spending some money on this week. Mr. Hoysef, we've got Thursday night football, which is kicking off in about 10 to 15 minutes. Just curious, we're not telling you to go bet on this because, hell, we're not going to have this video up for a while anyways. But Cincinnati at Baltimore, who do you see actually just flat out winning this game? Forget about the spread for a second.
Yeah, just when I thought Cincinnati was good, they didn't really look very good last week at all. And, Baltimore's been playing really good football, but I'm not a big John Harbaugh guy, I don't know. Where's that game? Is that at Baltimore?
Yeah, it's in Baltimore.
Yeah, Baltimore's always tough at home, but that's a toss-up, really. Those are two good teams that really don't like each other. I expect that you're going to be a tight battle there. I'm not going to go out there and throw something. I'll take the Bengals just for giggles, but I think that's more or less hoping because I have Jamar Chase on my fantasy team, so that's all I care about.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're going to see Joe Burrow sitting down at the Thursday night post-game football desk with Clarissa Thompson and all the other people on that show. This is the game right here. We're on a short week. Cincinnati comes in with some swag, even though they lost last week, and they should have won that game, by the way. Boyd dropped a touchdown pass. So I they didn't lose confidence over that. So I like Cincinnati a lot in this one. And I love this Ravens football team. I might go in a different way if this were a playoff game, but short time to get ready. The swag, if you will, of Joe Burrow is going to take him down.
Yeah, and that kind of does it for this week, right, Dave? What do we got on tap for next week? We got Thanksgiving. Who's playing on Thanksgiving? I mean, it's always the Lions and the Cowboys. I haven't really looking ahead at the schedule. Have you seen that thing?
No, I haven't paid too much attention to it. I think there's 3 games. I don't know if they're doing 3 games on Thanksgiving, and then on Friday, Brad, they're doing the very first ever Black Friday football game. So that's going to be an interesting thing.
Okay, right. You got the Packers at the Lions, Dave, on Thanksgiving, and then you got the Commanders at the Cowboys. So you get your boy Thurston Howell, and then the 49ers at the Seahawks. That's always a tough game. Pete Carroll always finds a way to rally the troops.
Yeah. I like that. I like that game a lot, and hopefully the Seahawks will take down the Rams in Los Angeles this week. So it makes that game a little bit more interesting heading into it. All right. On that note, that is it for this week's Gods of Odds. That is Brad Hoysef over there in beautiful Southern California. I'm Dave DeBob in Northern California. Wishing you all a tremendous rest of your sports viewing day.